always think about fueling your body rather than starving yourself or going on a diet. Starving yourself is going to lead to more weight gain, because what that does is it causes cravings, but also it makes your metabolism worse. On average, women gain around 20 pounds or 9 kilos around the time of menopause, but that's just the average, and it can be a lot more. Nutrition is absolutely key to reversing menopause weight gain, and I'm gonna take you through a step-by-step guide in this video to nailing eating for menopause weight loss. Hello fam, and welcome to my channel. My name's Melissa Neal, and this channel is all about helping you, if you're a woman over 40 or like me over 50, get in amazing shape. But one of the big things that hinders us, and it really hindered me, and I'm going to put a picture up here, is if we've gained weight around the time of menopause, and most of us will, even if it's not a significant amount. What we find is the fat is distributed in a much less flattering way around our midsection. We've gained a ton of fat around the midsection. For some people it's all over your body, but food is the most important thing to get on top of when it comes to menopause and weight gain. Before I talk about what the solutions are, I'm going to talk about what the problems are, why we have gained weight, because then that will make sense to you why I'm recommending the strategies around eating and fat loss for menopause. What's happening at around the time of menopause is your hormones are changing, your hormones are depleting. So estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, they're all depleting. Also, hormones like cortisol can impact on weight. So cortisol, for example, if you have too much cortisol, which is the fight or flight hormone, you're actually going to really struggle to lose weight. That's the stress hormone in your body. It's going to cause inflammation, and it's really hard to lose weight. Now, what happens if you have lower levels of estrogen, for example, which we're all going to experience? It results in fat storage around your midsection. That's because your body is trying to make more estrogen, and in doing that it's going to make more fat, and it typically stores around your midsection. That's different from when you've got high levels of estrogen, where you tend to store fat around the glute area and the thigh area. So it's a different kind of fat storage, and it's less flattering when we've got more fat around our midsection. Meanwhile, another thing that's happening is you're losing muscle mass, and muscle is the thing that actually gives you metabolism. So if you've got more muscle on your body will burn fat more easily, and less muscle is going to result in your body gaining fat more easily. And then the other big thing that happens is we tend to be more prone to insulin resistance. And by the way, 80% of Americans are walking around with insulin resistance. So we can assume it's a pretty similar figure in parts of Northern Europe, for example, and other Western countries, because we have a similar diet, a similar lifestyle. And what does insulin resistance do? Well, it means that our body cannot regulate the blood sugar levels properly. And so what that's going to do is our blood sugar levels are going to go up, and it's more difficult to lose fat, and it actually results in fat gain amongst many other modern day diseases. So type 2 diabetes is the classic one. It can lead to a plethora of other diseases like heart disease, for example, and Alzheimer's. So it's really serious and something that we do need to tackle. Loss of muscle mass, depleting and changing hormones, and insulin resistance all lead to fat storage. And so there are certain diets that I actually don't recommend because they're not going to be helpful with those three things. So those are very low calorie, very low carb diets like the ketogenic diets, juicing diets, and extreme fasting, because what they're going to do is slow your metabolism down even further, which you just can't afford to happen at around the time of menopause, because your metabolism is already slow for those reasons. And things like a fasting diet is going to be really hard to build muscle mass, and that's what you want to do, because we're going to talk about protein, but you're not going to be able to take in enough protein, enough food generally to actually build muscle. It goes the same for those other type of diets. So things like a ketogenic diet, there's not enough carbohydrate to build muscle, because carbohydrate as well as protein is actually a building block for muscle. And the thing that's going to transform your body when you're over 40 is being able to retain and gain muscle, gain the muscle that you've lost through the aging process. So the first thing that's really important that you need to implement, it's what's called macro-based eating. So that's paying attention to your balance of protein, carbohydrates and fats, because this is going to address your loss of muscle mass. And if you get really precise about what you're eating, you're actually not going to end up under eating. So it means you can actually have your calories up higher, but really paying attention to protein, carbohydrates and fats. So the amount of protein that you need is 1 gram of protein per pound in your body weight. If you weigh 160 pounds, 165 pounds, that kind of thing, which is about 70 to 75 kilos, then you need to be taking in 160 grams of protein. As well as that, what you need to do is ensure you've got like a 30-30-30 percentage split of protein, carbohydrates and fats. And so what that's going to look like is something like 35% protein, 35% carbohydrate and 30% fat. But you can play around with that. So it could be something like 38% protein, in which case you've got to adjust the other ratios, because it's just really, really important that you get that gram of protein per pound in body weight. If you weigh over 170 pounds though, shoot for your goal body weight. Now, I have a free nutrition guide which has this all covered. It's a 29-page guide. It actually includes sample meal plans, so you can start eating like this right away. I'm going to link it here and I'm going to link it in the description. Next, you need to consider your energy balance. That's the energy you're expending versus the energy that you're consuming, in other words, eating. What you don't want to do is have too much of a calorie deficit. So that's meaning you've got a huge gap between how much you're expending and how much you're consuming. If you do that, what's going to happen is going to make your metabolism worse. So in other words, if you do tons of cardio and take your calories really, really low, that's going to make your energy balance much wider, and it's going to be a real struggle to lose weight, to lose fat, because you're making your metabolism worse. So I recommend an energy balance of between 200 to 400 calories. So it's not massive, and it is going to mean slower fat loss, but it's going to mean that it's more successful than if you have a huge energy balance. And also, what happens when you have a huge energy balance, so that's a huge calorie deficit, deficit is it's really hard to stick to in the long term. So you can just end up yo-yoing around. Whereas if you have a smaller energy balance, you're going to be able to stick to it in the long term. So I'm going to show you now how to figure out how many calories you should be eating, and then transfer that into your macronutrients on MyFitnessPal. So what we want to do is calculate how many calories we need, and I'm going to just take you through exactly how to do this on a calorie calculator. So you can go on here, it's called calculator.net/calorie calculator, and I will put the link in the description. And just for argument's sake, because most of the women that watch me are actually in the USA, I'm going to take a USA female. So let's just say she's 53 years old. We're going to put that in there, female. She's 5'5", and she weighs 165 pounds, which is just under 75 kilos. Now we're going to put her as, you've got a drop down list of different levels of activity, because this will make a difference what your maintenance calories are. So we're going to say that she is moderately active. So she's working out 4 to 5 times a week. And then all we're going to do is just calculate maintenance calories, or it's going to calculate for her. So that's 1,984. So it's almost 2,000 calories. And then we want to have a split of 35% protein. So she's 165 pounds. So she's going to need around about 160 grams of protein. And we know what the calories are. So the calories are just under 2,000 calories for maintenance. And what we want to do for fat loss is subtract 200 to 400 calories from that. So in MyFitnessPal, on the bottom right hand corner on the menu, it says more. You're going to press more, and then you're going to go into goals, and just ignore all that weight stuff there for the time being. We want calories under nutrition goals. We want calories, carbs and protein and fat goals. So we're going to press that, and we can start to play around. So we know we can set the protein. We want this person to have 160 grams of protein. We want the carbohydrates probably to be anywhere in the region of like 100 to 200 grams of carbs. So I'm going to set it fairly moderately at 130 grams of carbs. And just remember, we're looking for between 1,600 to 1,800 calories for fat loss. So there we have, that's kind of quite a perfect split, really. We've got 30% carbs, which is 130 grams, 38% protein, so it's a bit higher than that 35% at 160 grams of protein, and 32% fat, so that's 60 grams of fat. And then what that adds up to, you can see on the bottom right hand corner, is 1,700 calories. So she's kind of got a deficit of just under 300 calories per day, which is kind of really manageable for somebody. You want to keep it at a reasonable deficit of between 200 to 400 calories. So let's talk about inflammation in your body. We talked about that with like raised cortisol levels, for example. Let's talk about insulin resistance. What do we need to do to tackle those? Well, we do need to avoid certain types of foods. So that's ultra processed foods. It's not going to do you any favors in this time of life. So things have changed, because when you were younger and younger people's advice tends to be, as long as you're in a calorie deficit, you can eat what you like, but it's simply not the case. Ultra processed food is not going to be helpful for insulin resistance, and it's not going to be helpful for inflammation in your body. So if you can cut out ultra processed foods altogether, so you've got to look at the labels in food that you're buying, and if it's got a really long list of ingredients, you need to avoid it. That's the key message here. And the other big ones are white flour. Avoid white flour if you can, because that's not great for insulin resistance. It's going to cause a huge blood sugar spike. It can actually cause inflammation in your body, and the same goes for refined sugars. So you want to keep those things down to a bare minimum, or if you can, cut them out altogether, because your menopausal body is going to really thank you for it. I've noticed such an improvement since I've been living like this. And yes, you do have to make sacrifices, but it's worth the sacrifices if you're going to look and feel great, isn't it? And so there are some foods that are really great if you can start incorporating them. So that's your lean protein. So we talked about the gram of protein per pound in body weight. That's fish, eggs, tofu, beans, lentils, lean meats, chicken, and you can even go for canned fish. That is absolutely okay. And then incorporate lots of fresh fruit and vegetables. So try to eat the rainbow, and they're going to keep you full, they're going to keep you satisfied. You don't want to be skipping on fruit either. I know that some people recommend skipping on fruit because some fruit is high in carbohydrate, but as long as you're combining your fruit with protein, it's absolutely okay to eat fruit. Talking of carbohydrate, go for those complex carbohydrates. So that's oatmeal, that's squash, that's sweet potato, that's pumpkin, that's brown rice, that's quinoa, all of the whole grains. So like whole grain bread is much better for you, and whole grain pasta. Go for everything that's whole grain, because it's not going to give you that blood sugar spike that we were talking about. It's actually going to keep you full and satisfied for longer, as is protein. Protein is going to keep you really satisfied. So I hope that you found that video helpful, and do remember that you can download my free nutrition guide. So it goes into all of this in detail in a 29-page document, and it actually has a free sample meal plan included in it, so you can learn how to eat optimally for menopause weight loss. And what I would say is always think about fueling your body rather than starving yourself or going on a diet. It's about fueling your body and providing your body nourishment, not starving yourself, because starving yourself is going to lead to more weight gain, because what that does is it causes cravings, but also it makes your metabolism worse. The key to reversing menopause fat gain and actually getting fat loss is thinking about nourishing your body, thinking about fueling your body, and stop diet mentality.